Coming up at the bottom of the hour, I am going to expose that the emperor is absolutely naked. I'm going to call the giant hoax. So stay with us for that. I really appreciate Greg Palast, who's worked for ABC News, BBC, you name it, syndicated columnist, joining us. He also writes for The Observer, one of the biggest newspapers in Europe. GregPalast.com is his site. He's a best-selling author. I wanted to get him on because he explained in 2002 when the documents leaked that there's a plan to implode Europe and the U.S. with the hedge funds next and sign us onto their derivatives debt. And he decried the derivatives moves in the late 1990s as well, bipartisanly. He was a former federal fraud investigation specialist at the highest levels of these brokerage firms and big banks. So he saw it coming. He's the first guy, other than economist George Humphrey, my friend here in Austin, city council member at the time, who also broke it down. But Greg Palast got the documents. What they've done to the third world, they plan to do here. What they've done to Greece, they're going to do to every other country in Europe, and then us. Whatever they can get away with, they'll do. And now they said they want 10% of the Cyprus Banks money. And now they're saying 15% in Italy and 15% in Spain. To set the precedent to just steal your money right off the top, unelected EU bureaucrats. So I wanted to get him on here today. They put an arrest warrant out a few years ago for him. He was covering the FEMA trailer areas in Louisiana falling apart. And they said it was terrorism to film a government installation. The arrest warrant was issued. It got media coverage, and so they didn't arrest him, and it got dropped. But it shows the mindset of this system where we can't hand out magazines now in Austin. Until I went down there and threatened to sue, they said, you can't hand your magazines out anywhere in this downtown. You can't have InfoWars bumper stickers. It shows what the higher-ups want. And if we lay down, they're going to win. The fake instinct to grovel and lick boots is going to bring us to hell. Now, Greg Palast of GregPalast.com, I want to get your take on exactly what's happening, where this is moving, and where the future of this is going to go. Greg, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome, Alex. I'm really glad to be back with you, especially because when I wrote in Vice magazine, a giant international column space that I have, that the Alex Jones Show is one of the most intelligent, most informative platforms for real journalism in the United States. And a lot of my lefty friends were like, what are you talking about, Alex Jones? And I said, yes, listen with your mind open, and you will get information you won't hear anywhere else. I don't have to agree with everything you say, Alex. It doesn't matter. What a blessing to have this platform, so I appreciate being on it.
No, I appreciate you, but I mean, listen, they do that to anybody that gets off the controlled left-right establishment fake debate plantation because they're scared. Anybody who's starting to really have an effect like yourself or others, they will attack that person in the press and say, don't go near this person because they're afraid our ideas are going to be picked up.
In fact, I just have to take a couple seconds to mention that obviously I am the mainstream outside the United States, the BBC, the biggest English language television.
Let's talk about Piers Morgan briefly.
Yeah, because, and what happened was...
5 of his employees arrested now. I mean, you know, when is he going to get arrested? Go ahead.
Well, as soon as he steps back in England, this is amazing to me. And I have to say, bless you, sir, for getting in his face. Piers Morgan, as a BBC television reporter and as a reporter for The Guardian, the biggest English language paper in the nation, much bigger than the New York Times, I did an undercover investigation in which I found that there was a lockup between Tony Blair, the Clinton White House, big power companies to basically seize the utility assets of the planet. And I uncovered this, including Enron, got inside, did undercover reporting, splashed all over, almost brought down the Blair government. People went to prison. But Piers Morgan, who was running a filth rag called The Mirror, went after me, calling me a liar, coming at smearing me.
He put you on the cover. And listen, you never toot your horn. You, more than anybody, helped bring down Enron, God bless you, who was raping the Californians, some weeks of over $1 billion of extra charges?
That's right. And what I always hated is that while we got Enron, I thought that it wasn't a bad apple. It was a whole damn rotten tree, rotten branch. And so what happened was that Piers Morgan even went so far as you know, I was on the cover as a sex maniac of the Mirror, just making up this stuff about Greg. You know, hey, listen, I don't mind a little action, but you know, I was smeared left and right by Piers Morgan, a complete liar. And then a sex
maniac's better than a hacker hacking innocent people.
Maniac maybe. But the thing is, we also uncovered that Piers Morgan had done insider trading, stuff that in the United States you'd be breaking rocks on a chain gang. He would trade on stocks. Listen to this. This guy would trade. Piers Morgan would, as the editor of the paper, find out what his columnists were going to recommend in the business pages the next day or next week to buy. He would buy it in advance, knowing that the stock would be pumped and would go up. It was automatic. He was pocketing hundreds of thousands of pounds into his own pocket. In the U.S., I mean, that's absolute jail time. I've never heard of anyone doing that in the U.S. without jail time. They let him get away with it. He lied on his visas. The U.S. State Department, including the current Obama administration, allowed him to come into the United States, despite the fact that it says that if you've committed what would be a felony crime in the United States, which he committed, you committed a felony crime in the United States, then you can't get a visa to work here. You can't get a green card.
Doesn't he fit the perfect MO of probably MI5 or MI6?
Worse, because he uses their information. In other words, he got a lot of
So he's a guy above it. He's one of like the master gophers who's actually playing the agencies. But I mean, when I met him, I was like, whoa, this is the real deal right here. I mean, this is like Count Dracula.
By the way, I do know that he really doesn't like you, Alex. I got the inside. But,
oh, really? What did they say?
But not, well, I'll tell you later, but they're really not happy with either of us. But the thing is, they're really upset with me because I'm from his establishment, from BBC. And the other thing he did was he fabricated reports on the war in Iraq. He literally took fabricated photos, and he got caught. Supposedly, photos of soldiers in Iraq, they were taken in sunny England. And he faked these photos. And when he got caught, he said, well, they were kind of like the real thing. Can you imagine? Faking war photos? I
got to hear them, and I know they hate me. They were crying and freaking out. They say they beat me in the debate. It was actually blew up in their face. They're scared. But before we get into Cyprus, but I mean, this hatchet man thing is important. What from your sources is Morgan saying?
Okay, he's just really upset with you. I mean, he's reading everything we're saying about him. Hi, Piers. I'm sure he's monitoring. Hey, Piers. And he's tried so hard to set me up to ruin my career, to say, I'm a sex maniac. And, hey, listen, here's my phone number if anyone wants to help me get over this terrible affliction. But the thing is that, he's by U.S. law, he's a criminal felon. By English law, he seems to have gotten away with it. They don't have the same securities laws we have. He fabricated news reports most people would never be allowed on the air. And for CNN, or to allow a guy who's been caught again and again literally making up the news, making it up, faking it, and using it to enrich, line his own pocket. I'm just stunned at I once said that when American mainstream media needs a new TV host, a new news anchor, they just wait for a toilet to overflow, and they got him. And it's just unbelievable. Is that the best America could find? Is this guy who, if he goes back to England, will be immediately clamped in irons, by the way, because he was involved in wiretapping phones. It's all against, you can't wiretap.
Well, they've already arrested, what is it, like 10 people? It was 5 more last week. His underlings.
You know what? All the people around him. All the people around him. And he even admits that he listened in on private phone conversations because they hacked into people's answering machine, including Sir Paul McCartney. I know exactly how he did it. I can't reveal, but I know exactly the method he used from my BBC television show. Our investigators know exactly how you did it, Piers. I know exactly. And we will reveal that as soon as you get close enough to sunny England to be arrested. Then we'll reveal it. We know how you did it. He's listening. It's creepy. It's creepy. And it's illegal, by the way. It's quite illegal.
He jumped whenever I found out he was at a big gun place in Houston. They told me. So they let me into the green room, and I walked up, and he actually jumped when he saw me. It was really funny.
These guys, it's unfortunately, suddenly he's clothing himself as the guy protecting our little children from getting shot in schools. Police. This guy he's a threat to the moral character.
Oh, yeah, that's like the Bushes, Prescott Bush, after he got caught running the Nazi banks. They created the USO right as he was about to be arrested with all the others, but they did that. So they said, well, we can't arrest him. He just started this thing for the troops.
Yeah. So yeah, look, it's fun and circus, and what's terrible about it is that somehow they say Alex Jones is a wild man, and yet Piers Morgan, who does nothing but the Britney, he says his dream interview would be Britney Spears. Excuse me, I want to vomit. But anyway, I don't mind. You want to interview Britney Spears? Fine, Mr. Morgan. Just do it from the prison cell that's waiting for you in London.
And it's getting a lot closer. I mean, how can all his underlings go to jail and admit they've been doing this, but he doesn't get in trouble?
You have to. I mean, the English system is so class poisoned. And plus, don't forget, Alex, remember I said he lined his pockets with from inside information. I want to know, Mr. Morgan, who else, who in government, who in MI6, who in the establishment did you also pass off these tips to? Who else traded on this inside information with you? And is that why you've been protected?
Well, we know it's come out the Metropolitan Police were in it.
Yeah, we know that. I mean, they straight up briberies to the police. I mean, it's unbelievable. But anyway, let's, but I did.
Yeah, we're going to break. Let's take us out to break. 30 seconds. What's going on in Cyprus with the bank accounts disappearing?
Wholesale thievery, but what they're doing in Cyprus, they're doing in New York too, but in a much subtler way. Much subtler, but it's just as evil, just as bad. There's no way, believe me, and I have the documents.
I know you always do.
Hi, this is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, with some news about some new additions to the InfoWars store. You know, good health is freedom. When you're healthy, you're not a slave to the medical system. Everything works well, your brain, your body, even your spirit. You're a healthier person. And to help support that great health, Alex has asked me to source the cleanest, most potent superfoods and other similar products in the world and bring them to the InfoWars store. So we've done that. The brand name is Health Ranger Select, and we're starting out right now with these three products. We've got Himalayan salt from Pakistan, formed hundreds of thousands of years ago in an ancient seabed long before modern pollution destroyed much of the oceans. This is loaded with trace minerals, and it's pristine, true, full-spectrum sea salt. We've also got Natural Attitude Turmeric. It's an extract of turmeric, very potent, tastes great, alcohol-free. This is from organic turmeric out of India. And we've also got Clean Chlorella. And we sourced and did research on all the chlorella sources around the world, and we found the two cleanest sources that have the lowest levels of any kind of contaminants. In fact, this one is virtually free of all metals and all contaminants. It's called Clean Chlorella, and it's about 2/3 protein, and it's got chlorophyll and chlorella growth factor in it. Check it out online. It's an amazing superfood that athletes are using and people are using to help support healthy lifestyles. It's fantastic. This is all packaged in our certified organic facility here in Central Texas. There we follow USDA certified standards, and we're audited every year by the USDA certifier to make sure that we comply with all organic standards. That, combined with the fact that we only source super clean superfoods and raw materials from around the world, means that our products represent the cleanest and most potent products that you'll find across the natural products industry. Check all of these out under the Health Ranger Select brand name at the InfoWars store, InfoWarsStore.com. And we'll be bringing you more of these in the near future. Thanks and take care.
That's right. Welcome back. Greg Palast is our guest with breaking analysis, total insider when it comes to understanding the banking fraud and what's happening. I want to look at Cyprus, the Cypriot people of Cyprus. I want to look at the global financial meltdown that's impossible to stop. They designed it to take over the whole planet. And then look at the fraud going on. I'm going to guess he's talking about flash trading. And why did J.P. Morgan Chase for 2.5 hours, zero account balance, everybody? Which a glitch can't do, folks. That stuff's all compartmentalized. And there's backup systems. We'll get Greg's take on that if I'm wrong or right. Greg Palast, please continue.
Okay. First of all, people should know that if you don't know Greg Palast, I am a reporter for BBC television, but before I became a journalist, I was an investigator, Justice Department, and racketeering fraud expert. But I actually got my degree in economics studying under Milton Friedman at the University of Chicago, of all things.
So you went to school around the real elite of this whole system. I was
the only American in what is known as the Chicago Boys group. I was in with these, I studied under 6 Nobel Prize winners. And one of them, by the way, is a guy named Bob Mundell. He is known as the father of the euro. He invented the Europa. Now, the euro, as he originally called it, the euro was not invented by Europeans. It was not meant to be a competitive currency to the dollar. What it was meant instead was to be something which would, and let me tell you, I'm quoting Mundell. I'm quoting the father of the euro.
No, he's on record. He said it was to take over countries.
It was meant to eliminate the power of elected Congresses and parliaments to regulate industry. It would smash, it would smash the powerful unions. It would end any type of environmental regulation.
And it now appoints the presidents of major countries and exempts itself from the laws. It is a tyranny.
So what he said was, look, we have to take, and he told me this. I have, by the way, even tape recorded some of our conversations. That's what I used to do. I was always undercover even then as a young guy. He said, look, we have to take away the power of parliaments to set fiscal policy, to set monetary policy. If we do that and we impose this regime, then there is no vote of any parliament that can have any effect whatsoever on controlling industry. And therefore, the only thing you can do is reduce wages, cut regulations, and I don't mean regulations like, that regulate our civil liberties. He's talking about cutting regulations that...
And here's the issue. They sell it like the corporations would create a utopia, but the truth is they just shut down their competition. They are the opposite of free market, while blaming now the free market's being blamed for their piratical looting.
Right. So it's piracy. And so what's happening is in Cyprus is that you have a bunch of billions and billions of dollars in Russian mobster money and looted money, bribery money, hot money has gone out of Russia and put into Cyprus, which was made part of the Eurozone. This money then is basically just a money laundering island. The money went from Cyprus out into Greece and other places so the mobster money can make it then jump over to Switzerland.
So let me guess. So now the top gangsters, no, there's smaller gangsters there as well. This is just Don Corleone demanding a cut right off the top. And while he's at it, take everything from maids and people and school teachers.
So what happened is that the Cypriot banks, the little elite that was handling the hot Russian dirty money, of course, got their skim. And they gambled it all away in Greece. And then bigger sharks, particularly a guy named Paul Singer. We need to know who these guys are. They're not just sharks in general. They have names. Paul Singer, multi-billionaire, Romney's biggest backer, by the way, and his business partner, Romney's business partner, has a fund called Elliott Management. Elliott Management went to Greece and said, we're going to burn this country down unless you pay us 100 times. I want to repeat that, 100 times what we paid for Greek bonds. The Greek government paid, had to steal it from the Cypriot bankers. Now the Cypriot bankers are busted. They're about to go under. So the European Union holds secret meetings with the IMF, with the president of Cyprus, Greek Cyprus, locked in a hotel room on the 5th floor of a hotel. I kid you not. I can't make this stuff up. Locked in the 5th floor of a hotel room and told, we're going to tell you what you're going to sign off on. And you're going to sign off on sucking money out of the average...
Stay there. Let's get into this. This is so incredible. Remember, they're not just taking other gangsters' money. They're taking school teachers, retired cops, auto mechanics, just taking their money. And our media says it's good. Let me just publicly invite Greg Palast on tonight, tomorrow, whenever he has time, to do an hour commercial-free interview. I mean, there'll be commercials on the front and the end, but, commercial-free, uninterrupted, hour-long talk where he really has the floor and more time to break down all the names. He can even send us documents, articles. We could do a report with him to really break down the entire world and what's going on, because I'm not kissing his hind end. When it comes to financial news and the inside scoops, this guy's worked, still ABC Nightly News, Nightline, BBC Newsnight, their top show, London Guardian, Observer. I mean, he knows where the bodies are buried, and he doesn't just say this stuff. He doesn't just get up here and throw this stuff out there. And he's nonpartisan. He just calls it like it is. And I I briefly want to ask him before he gets back into Cyprus and all the rest of it. Hugo Chavez, I know you've met him, interviewed him, know him. I get the fact that as strongmen go, he wasn't like, super nasty like Fidel Castro or something. I get compared to a Hitler, he was an angel. And I know being close to somebody, when the devil's got his arm around you, you don't recognize it's the devil, to quote Albert Speer, the German armaments minister. But I understand the globalists are horrible and evil and are much more sophisticated. But I know people from there who, the communist basically, he says he wasn't a communist, I say he was, a socialist, taking property, taking small family businesses. I mean, obviously he had a dark side too. Your eulogy or your statement on Hugo Chavez briefly.
Okay, I knew Hugo Chavez very well for more than a decade. We met many times. But on the other hand, I had a lot of disagreements with him, and I got in his face quite a bit. One thing I don't like to do is become friends with any politician, because that's dangerous stuff. I'm not Brian Williams having dinner with the president. That makes me vomit. So I'm not going to do that with Chavez. But what you have to understand with Chavez, he was an elected leader, unlike Castro, who's a dictator who rules purely by the gun. And Chavez was elected.
But Chavez's cozying up to him was, I think that's what, because I wasn't.
The thing is that the important thing is that he stood up against the new global order. He said, you're not going to take our oil for nothing. He's not going to give away the oil to the Koch brothers for nothing. By the way, the Koch brothers are his main customers at the Flint Hills refinery in Houston, outside Corpus Christi. He wasn't going to give the Koch brothers free oil. He wasn't going to give away all the money that comes down for oil that used to go to Miami, that was skimmed by the rich. So he basically said he was Robin Hood. He was Robin, like FDR. He said, I'm going to take from the rich who've run this country forever, and I'm going to give it to the poor. They've never gotten the oil money. Now they'll get it. When I went in Caracas in 1976, the first oil boom, poor people, 1 million people lived in cardboard shacks. Those cardboard shacks aren't there anymore. Chavez replaced it with bricks and mortars and buildings, education, health care,
So you could say when it comes to redistribution, which has always been a disaster, he is one of the only cases where it wasn't an absolute nightmare.
He was the case where first of all, he didn't do it with guns, and they don't have Guantanamo, they don't have Bradley Manning in prison, none of that stuff.
No, I hear you. I just don't say he's a good guy because we're run by bad guys. I don't just automatically say, go ahead.
The big thing about Chavez, and by the way, for Alex Jones listeners, my BBC film, The Assassination of Hugo Chavez, I am offering for free. If you go to gregpalast.com, you can download it for nothing, because I want people to at least get the other side of the story and meet Chavez. And by the way, I meet with the guys who kidnapped him. He was kidnapped in 2002 by the head of the Chamber of Commerce. Talk about a corporate takeover. And the U.S. ambassador ran down to have his picture taken with the kidnappers while they're holding elected president hostage. You know how that looked to the rest of Latin America?
Well, listen, promise me this, then. Will you come back next week, and we'll do a whole hour on your perspective on Hugo Chavez?
Oh, I would love to, and it could be with your commercials. I find them informative, Alex. I don't mind your commercials.
Oh, especially the squatty potty. But the point is that I want to get you on the news about the financial stuff. I want to get you on the radio back about Chavez, because I want to really explore from somebody who actually was down there. How many times you go to Venezuela?
Oh, at least I have to. I mean, I've been down to Latin America several dozen times. I met not only with the president of Venezuela, Chavez, but with the presidents of Ecuador, Brazil, all of them. That's my job. But I also with the people who kidnapped them. I mean, with the people who've taken.
Yeah, we're going to have you back on about that in the 3 minutes we've got left, or 4 minutes. Shift back to on record the private bureaucracy with the bank heads meets with the Cypriot leaders in Cyprus, and they tell them this is how it's going to be: 10% out of everybody's bank account to set a new incredible precedent. Even the former head of the Exchequer said this will blow up Europe. But I guess they want to blow it up to then consolidate it again. Yes. This is the shock doctrine.
Yes, and what happened was Christine Lagarde, who's head of the IMF, panicked. She said, we're going to have an international bank run if you do that. Why can't you take a few dollars from the bank owners? They're the ones that took all the hot money, blew it away, don't they? And she said, at least make them lose a few percentage points of their stock in these banks. And they said, no. The ECB, the Germans, said, no way. Because who is really behind these Cypriot guys? It's the Germans who own the bank stock. So he said, we're not taking a penny loss, guys. We're taking it right out of the account. She said, you can't. And they said, you can't take it out of the accounts of the pensions of working people. And they said, yeah, that's what we're taking out. She said, make it 30% on the Russians and the rich, the ultra rich, and 2%, nothing on anyone over 100 with a small account. They wouldn't do it, and there's a reason. They want the explosion. When I talked to the former chief economist of the World Bank, Joe Stiglitz, he and I both lectured in economics at London School of Economics, and he said, we called them the IMF riots. They want the riots because if there's a riot, they can then call in the troops, impose martial law, and then name the so-called technocrat from Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan who will run the country. He says, the riot is written into the plan. I want to repeat that phrase. The riot is written into the plan.
And that's your article that's in my book from 2002. You've been breaking it down before that. I mean, this is part of their plan. This all got leaked. They do the same plan over and over again.
I showed the documents to Stiglitz. I want to make it very clear. He never gave me the confidential documents. He only verified them. I said, my God, it looks like they're actually saying we want a riot so you can move in and impose these regimes. He said, that's exactly right. That it's part of the deal. It's the IMF riot. It's written right into the plan, the riot. And so then the repression follows the riot.
And so here's my question. And then the stocks go down. They can buy everything up. Everything falls apart for 6 months. Then they come in and pose as the saviors, bringing in total austerity.
And by the way, one thing I did see also, if you go to gregpalast.com and you get whatever, Greek Cyprus is surrounded by massive pools of oil and natural gas, which have been virtually untouched. That's what they want. They're going to get that. That's going to be the final payment.
What are the Russians going to do with their area they control of Cyprus?
Well, there's the northern Greek part. So what happened is actually to play them off, the president, the prime minister of Cyprus just flew to Moscow to basically offer the Russians the big oil fields offshore as a way to try to maybe counter the Europeans. But, hey, no, they've lost it. It's going to go to the Russians, or it's going to go to the Germans, or it's going to go to... So
it's just like the beginning of World War II or a few years into it, whenever you've got Hitler and the Russians dividing Poland. They're just there carving up Cyprus. I mean, this is incredible. What about the precedent to just come into bank accounts and scoop money out?
Well, this is incredible. That you just literally, because remember, the European Union also has, just like we have in the Federal Reserve, you have a guaranteed bank account, right? We have a 250,000, they had 100,000 euro absolute guarantee. And the guys who are supposed to guarantee the sanctity of your account are the guys who actually took the money. Can you imagine? They just go in and say, 10%, joke. And these are not the people that did this. The bankers, and the bankers didn't lose a penny. The money was given to them. And so, in a way, we do it in a more sophisticated manner. That is, Bernanke crushes down interest that you receive to zero. You get 0.25% in your bank accounts. You get next to nothing in your bank accounts. The money is lent to the banks at 0.25% by the Federal Reserve, and then the Federal Reserve borrows it back as Treasury bills at 3%. Well, they literally handed out trillions of dollars at 0.25%, borrowed it back at 3%. Well, that's a nice deal. Let me in on that. Why can't I get that deal? So we do it here, but in a much more subtle manner. There, I think they wanted to put it in people's faces. They wanted to say, they wanted to push that riot. They want to kick the system over. They call it, the guys I worked with at Chicago came up with this system. There was a professor there, a philosopher named Joseph Schumpeter, and he believed in what they called creative destruction. It's kind of apocalyptic. In other words, if you bring the whole order down, you can recreate a brand new, fresh... That's
right. If you're in control of a multinational thing above it, you implode the subunits, order out of chaos. Listen, that is the shock doctrine, which you, of course, have exposed for so long. Let's set you back up next week on the Chavez situation for an hour to really delve into that. And then let's get you on the nightly news. I'm going to let you talk to my producers here in just a moment, or should I have one of the producers call you?
Have anyone call me, and gregpalast.com, GregPalast. For at least a week, I'm going to keep up. And while you're having me on talk about Chavez, you can download that BBC film for no charge.
Thank you, Greg. All right. Thank you, sir. We'll talk to him again soon. Very important information, very interesting perspective on all of this, and I'll debate him a little bit in a friendly way about Chavez next week, because he started out just nationalizing the oil. And I can go, well, that's pretty dangerous because we know what it leads to next, but okay, I don't care about the globalist. You take the oil. And he did divvy it up. He built the power of the state, did give some money to some peasants, gave them some land. And like 14 years ago, I'm like, well, that's actually positive. A communist actually redistributing something, because they usually don't do that because they want total control. They actually make things poorer, kind of Agenda 21. But I still said I don't endorse it. It's going to go bad. And it got down to taking people's little shoe factories that might make, 10,000 pairs of shoes a year, some little bitty, factory with 20 employees, nationalize that, give it to the communists, kick everybody out, take small schools over. I mean, that's on record. So, see, it doesn't work is the point. It got to where he was having to take everything. He was redistributing wealth of people that would be considered poor in this country. And it just made a giant mass of poor people that were a little bit better off than they were 20 years ago. But there's more of them, just no middle class, really, a tiny government elite, and a few insiders that are opulently rich, and no middle class, and just a giant group of poor people who, on average, did get better for him. That's why he can't ever be voted out. But it was starting to get bad, though, back to where it was. I've studied this, started really rotting because they'd already redistributed everything, and everybody was just sitting around. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the sites, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.